pay attention to as we move through the legislative session.
Melanie, I was just wondering if you could enlighten us on the appointment process for the vacant seat and how that works and what are the criteria used in selecting from the various candidates?
Yeah, there's a couple meetings that happened today, and I'll go find the video links and put those in the chat. What our rules say is if more than 10 people apply, we have a subgroup of counselors help to recommend how to narrow that down. We had 14 people total apply, one person who we found out lives outside the city limits, so 13 actual eligible people. And then we had a meeting this morning with myself, Councilor Perkins, and Councilor Broadman to narrow that down. And then we had a meeting at 3 p.m. to finalize a list with the full council. And we've got 4 names to interview on Wednesday. Greg Delgado, Megan Norris, John Halen, and Brian Brown. And I will see if I can find the agenda link that has more of their information. There'll also be an agenda link for the Wednesday meeting that will have their applications and also the questions that we're going to be asking them.
Is there anything written anywhere about the criteria established in evaluating the candidates?
We've got their applications with each of the questions that we asked them initially when they applied. And then if you watch the meetings, you can hear myself and Council Broadman and Perkins and then the full council talk about kind of what we're looking for. A lot of us mentioned, and I mentioned today, looking for some connection to the business community, looking for some expertise and experience in the housing world, especially since that's probably still the #1 topic that we're dealing with. So, and then a couple other things that we highlighted as things that matter to us. But there's nothing in our rules or in our charter that has like specific XYZ background. It just says you have to have lived in the city for a year and be a registered voter in Bend, or the basic requirements.
Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions for the mayor? Anything from the board?
I do have another random question. Is probably 6 months ago, we were talking about the allocation of budgets to the NAs annually. And at one time they had been directly tied or very closely tied to tax lots. But it's pretty clear with the budgets the last couple of years that they're not tied to that anymore. And I'd asked you if you could look into what that was and what that was going to be, so we could kind of have a handle on future plannings. But I don't know if we ever got that resolved. I think you're muted still.
Thanks. This just popped up because I was searching up the Zoom link by putting OFDNA to my email, and I saw the email from, I think it was last October, that I forwarded something that Michaela had answered that question for us. I'll send it again, Brian. I think I just forwarded it to board at Old Farm Bend, but she had I had sent the question to her and she had put some answers back about the increase, why was it, and that. So let me forward that to you and then see if that answers your question.
And as far as you know, is that still the case going forward?
Yeah, nothing, as far as I know, nothing has changed on that I'm aware of.
Okay. I was just odd because our budgets the last couple of years have been exactly round dollars, which seems unlikely given my limited math skills, but I was just curious if there was some other methodology being used.
Yeah, Brian, what's your email? I'll just email this right to you.
bkennedy@bendcable.
Okay. There it is. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Any other questions for the mayor at this point in time? Okay, moving right along. Shall we discuss the speed trap? Hello? Yes? Yes?
Well, we certainly can do that.
Yeah.
If you would like me to.
Yep, you were taking notes. That's why.
Okay. Well, yes, just for those in the audience, the NAs have been requested to submit some potential locations for those radar speed signs that you see around town. They have a set number of those pieces of equipment and they share them between all of the NAs. And so we have asked for and shared possible locations within the old farm. And so we are going to submit to the city for 2023 3 locations, which would include along Pearl Road, along Broster House, and along 15th. So we're looking to identify as specific a location on each of those roads as possible, and even potentially offering suggestions on time of year when they might be most effective, given school seasons, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the 3 submissions that the old farm's going to offer to the city before the deadline. So if you have any specific thoughts about locations on those 3 streets, we'd certainly love to hear that, and we will incorporate that in our feedback to the city.
Folks, you can reach out to us on Facebook through our page. It's Old Farm District Neighborhood Association. You can reach out through the messenger on that, and someone will get back to you. You can also reach out to me on Nextdoor under my name, Jen Sawyer, and I'll get back to you. You can also reach us at our email. It's board@oldfarmbend.com. Any questions regarding the speed traps? Okay, perfect. So next up is we were asked to submit some input to the city, and we have kind of been discussing what that would look like. And I think the best person to answer these or to chat about this would probably be Karen. Do you want to take the lead on this?
I'm sorry, I was distracted.
In regards to what we're talking about submitting to the city in regards to the listening session.
Well, James DeRopi will be making a presentation. We talked about, of course, the city has a lot of issues that need to be addressed. The biggest one we think is that we've heard repeatedly from our members and other people that the public doesn't feel that they've been listened to. And I know, of course, state goal number 1 requires public participation, and the city notifies people, but people feel that they're not involved in the decisions. These committees are staff appointed, and by the time a proposal comes to the council or planning commission, it's a done deal. But people, I think, want to feel listened to. We discussed, how to facilitate that, and I think the best way is to get a response, even if it's a thank you for your comment, if it's a detailed technical sort of letter, some response to why it may be appropriate or not. And particularly when the committees decide what they're going to do, for example, a code change, that before it goes to council, they can publicize it so that people can actually make input and feel like they're listened to. That's the refrain that I hear over and over and over again. In terms of the NAs trying to get board members, I know some of them are struggling. And at the last land use meeting we had, they indicated that they're hearing people say, why should I join? Because nothing I say makes a difference. So we think that's a very, very important issue for the city.
So can I just offer a little context there? So recently, the city reached out to several organizations throughout Bend and asked for their organizational input about what they felt the city's biggest issues were and whether or not we had any suggestions for how they could solve those issues. There was a form that they put out. It's kind of a collection process for how to gather that information. And so this organization, our neighborhood association, thought that, to Karen's point, that the biggest issue facing the city would be that they needed to listen better to the input being provided by citizens. And so, and the second part of that question was, well, what can we do about that? How would you? What suggestions might you have for making improvements to that area. And we, as the neighborhood association, thought, well, perhaps if there was a way that the city could not necessarily respond individually to all the input they received, but collectively, if they could summarize on a particular issue they've asked for input on, or public input during public meetings, if they could summarize that data and perhaps publish it to a website on the city's site that says, yes, we've heard you, we've discussed it, and this is what we think about your input. And that gives feedback to the citizenry that they've been heard, it's been discussed by city council, and here's our thoughts on the input. I think that's kind of where we're going. But in this meeting, in the public meeting, I think we also wanted to hear from the membership as to whether or not we were on track as a neighborhood association for what this neighborhood feels is the biggest issues facing the city. So in the next minute or 2 or 5, we would like to hear input from the people that are attending this meeting as to what they think the city's biggest issues are and how we might be able to solve them.
I think to perhaps clarify even a little bit more, if I'm reading this right, the question posed to us is, what does our organization think the biggest problem that faces the city is? So it's singular, and they use the word problem. So we are not charged with detailing a list of improvement opportunities, but they're actually asking us, what is the biggest problem? So if you have a thought different than what Karen and Dirk have just kind of outlined, then we would certainly love to hear that, because we're in that process and we need to submit our response as an NA by Thursday.
All right, so, sorry, go ahead, Dirk.
Going once, going twice. I'm just asking for input if anybody had any more input besides what we've already shared.
And these are tough questions when you ask for the single issue that you want to promote. So I'm going to suggest that.
Looks like Jim wants to provide some input.
Yeah, and I think, but sometimes it's you're put on the spot and you want a moment to think about it. I would encourage the use of the chat throughout the meeting if something comes up to chime in with
Good
that.
idea.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thanks. Well, from the area that I live in and the people that I hear from, which is the area over by Wilderness Way, 27th, I think most people are concerned about the growth pressure to develop more, build more homes. And that, of course, has its pluses and minuses because there is a lot of pressure for more affordable housing. But there's also, a downside to that because it's changing the nature of the city. It's becoming more urbanized, and population continues to grow. The second issue would be the homeless numbers in the city, which any city in the country, I suspect, is having difficulty dealing with the homeless. I will say this: the numbers are significant from what I read in the paper. But if we go through another economic downturn, another recession, I think we're going to see the situation deteriorate dramatically. So I think it's very important to get a handle on that now, while the economy is still favorable, because it can only get worse otherwise. So thank you for the opportunity to give some input.
Thank you, Jim. We do have a message from the chat, and that is overbuilding for existing infrastructure. Laura, do you want to get on the mic and speak a little bit more to this? So much. All right, so the comment was overbuilding for the existing infrastructure, excuse me. And Carla said litter, homelessness, traffic, roads in ill repair. Once again, if you have some ideas, you can enter it in the chat or you can raise your hand and we can.
I would
discussion
also
about it.
just like to insert here that it's a multi-part question that we're offered. Not only are we asked to identify what we see as the biggest problem, but who the city and others might partner with to help address the problem. If we could solve this problem that we identify, what would it actually look like? We are tasked with suggesting plans or objectives in order to achieve the desired change. And importantly, identifying practical steps that could be used to measure the progress being made towards the stated goal. So it's great to have the identification of individual problems that might be what we want to put forward. We would also be very favorably inclined to hearing how you might identify a response for those various other questions that are aligned with the issue itself. So now or obviously independent of this meeting.
Okay, from the chat, we've got large tree preservation. This is from CWNA. We in Century West are seeing greater incidents of graffiti. Not saying this is a top 3 concern, but it's disheartening to see it become so prevalent. If you have any other ideas and you want to email us, please feel free to. Again, you can also reach out to us on Facebook through the Messenger app.
I just wanted to provide some additional information too. Besides the form that y'all are submitting and also being able to present at one of our kind of open times at our listening sessions, we also are doing some focused roundtables. And one of them is on equity, engagement, and access. And I've asked that the NLA be present at that so that we can talk about overall some of the things you were talking about how to make people feel that they've been heard, how do people access government in different ways, how do we engage with people more out in the community instead of requiring people to come to certain meetings that may not work for everyone. And I really also want to take more of an approach of, you know, trying to respond to people as much as possible. I know how it feels so bad to just send an email into the void and then just like hope that somebody read it, right? But if you can actually get a response or even an update, which we actually did, we've been trying to do recently, where sometimes we'll get some, you know, people use an email campaign or something to send us emails, and we've been trying to create a kind of a mass reply. Probably not going to individually reply to everybody, but we're going to at least reply to everyone who wrote it on a certain topic and say, hey, here's how council voted and here was the result and here's a link to more information, right? So that at least people know that we know they care about this issue and want to give them that information. And I'm also thinking about ways too to handle the public comment in the meetings, to not just kind of sit there silently, but to have some moments of interaction where if we can provide a quick answer easily, let's do it. If we can put someone to a staff person right away to help them with their problem, let's do it. You know, not always going to be able to do that to respond to public comment, but I think that's a big part of people feeling heard, is that they get that response or that acknowledgement that, you know, this is an issue they care about. So we want to, you know, continue to have them engage on it.
Melanie, I would also offer just that as a, you know, a viewer of others' comments. Sometimes there are folks who submit information which appears to be from a very knowledgeable place, that they might be specialists in an area where some of us aren't. And I, for one, would really love to see the response to those questions or their comments. But I think that would really help the feeling of people being heard is not always just about their own comments, but when they see what they think are really valid, thoughtful comments just kind of disappear into the ether, it doesn't leave a really good feeling about, continuing to engage in that way. So to Dirk's point earlier, if there was a means for addressing not just the kind of the run-of-the-mill daily questions, but some of the more maybe scientific based or others that would, I think the population would like to see a response to. I think that would really help the general feeling of the community being heard, even if it's not your own question. So I'll just toss that out there for continued consideration.
Will the public have an opportunity to engage in the same kind of listening session that the stakeholders and committee members are privy to?
One moment, child break.
Yeah, word. Got it. Right.
Fully understand.
I just want to know what she broke.
Yeah. Jim, Park and Rec restrooms are run by Park and Rec. The city doesn't really have any say about those.
Which is an interesting, not everybody knows that, but the city and Parks and Rec are two different entities.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. I'm making a point about the vandalism that's taking place. And we mentioned earlier the graffiti. Oftentimes they go sort of hand in hand. And so some areas of the city are more vulnerable to this that type of damage. And
So just Jim,
whose jurisdiction it is.
Kind of along the lines of the questions that we have to field for providing input. Do you have in mind a solution for that problem?
Well, I don't think law enforcement's going to be able to remedy that problem. So, no, but we all know that cities and communities that experience increased graffiti and vandalism, if there aren't measures taken to control that, it can have a large negative impact on those neighborhoods, property values and things like that. So it's just disheartening to see these things take place in our communities.
Agree.
And trying to turn them around is extremely difficult, if not practical.
So Jen, you had posed a question to Melanie before she had a child break.
Yeah, sorry about that. So the roundtables are going to have it's basically an overall listening session over 2 different sessions on the 19th, kind of a mid-afternoon and then the evening session. They're going to start with 30 minutes of just open feedback for instance, James to come speak for OFDNA, other community organization members, other NAs to speak to their groups input like that they put in on the forum, but if they want to elaborate or give us some additional information. And then we're going to move into 2 45-minute sessions with roundtables with invited representatives from different groups around town or stakeholders. One of them is housing, homelessness and affordable housing and economic development. One is on transportation, and then one is this engagement and equity and access piece, where we're having like Human Rights and Equity Commission, different representatives of different community groups, NLA, people that can talk to us about how to improve our engagement with the community and build some more of this access and helping people to feel more heard, which is what you all are talking about. So those are we're trying to invite stakeholders to have kind of a focused conversation. We're inviting the public to watch. And what I wanted to do was provide a form or some way of, for anybody who did take the time to watch, to then say, hey, can you just fill out a brief comment like, what resonated with you? What did you disagree with? Do you have anything that came up that you want to add into the kind of the pile here after listening to that conversation? And then we will also have time after we go through our goals setting to put those out to the public for people to react to those, say what's missing, what do you like here, what do you think shouldn't be here as well before we even approve them. So there'll be more public kind of comment and public input opportunities as we move through the process, but we wanted to have not only those kind of open periods, but also some focused discussions on stuff we already know that people really care about, like housing, transportation, and this kind of access piece.
Melanie, I have a
Thank you.
question if I could. It appears that the city and the council rely quite heavily on advisory councils and committees for various issues. Is there a way where the public can help and provide feedback or knowledge or insight at that level? I think one of the things
Yes.
that we hear frequently is that information that comes out of the advisory committees, it feels to people like they're at that point the decision has been made. The council may nudge them one way or the other, refine a point here or there, but it feels the feedback we get is there's a feeling at that point that the public comment is not really taken seriously because the committee is so far down a road, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so the advisory committees, their purpose is to advise council, and their purpose is to advise them on things that we direct them to, either through their enabling right statute, or we may send them a project. Basically, like, we asked NLA to work on what kind of code revisions can we do about land use public comment. If you guys remember that project from a couple of years ago, and said, hey, do this. So then when that came back up to us, there wasn't a lot of controversy because it's what we'd sort of asked them to do, and they had come up with a good solution. But I think the city has been trying to be more public about when these advisory committee meetings are, because they all have public comment periods. So they all have an opportunity to live give comment. They all have an email address that people can send input and information to as well, to help inform their advice that they then give to us. So there is a way to engage with those at that level, and before it comes to council.
Are you guys going to be doing a lot more social media outreach regarding that, what you were just discussing, and engaging with the public and getting that information out there?
Yeah, I know that we are weekly publishing all the meetings every week, which we started doing, I think last year, to try to just be like, here's on the radar. And so I think we're going to continue to and I'm meeting with our comms director on Wednesday to kind of just dive into some of the ideas for the next 2 years. With social media, a lot of it is just capacity of being able to cover all the platforms and get all the
Right.
information out there, right? Which is why, it's great to be working with you all to help spread that information as well. But I think it's important to make sure people know, and especially it's sort of, and I think we have this ability still, like if you're really interested in the environment, you should be able to sign up and get an email every time that committee's going to meet, right? Or something to notify you, so you're staying in the loop, and able to participate when you want to.
Any more questions? Okay, what a good segue to kick it to Karen, our land use, and an update about the gas station.
Yes, we have 3 short-term rental whole house applications as of today. That's one thing. Second, there is a 12-lot subdivision going in right on the canal. Anyone driving westbound or eastbound on Reed Market, you see there are 2 private bridges across the canal. One of them is going to be the south, a 12-lot subdivision. There's a public meeting on it at the East Library at 4:30, I think on January 23rd. And I'd encourage people to go. It's so much better than Zoom. The last meeting I was at there, you had 8 or 9 people, and it was a wide discussion on a variety of things that was really interesting. And the developer got a lot of questions, and they were answered to people's satisfaction. So that's number 2. Number 3, the hearings officer has approved the gas station for the corners of Southeast Murphy and Broster House. The question is whether to mount an appeal to the city council. And I think that the various people who submitted comments will in fact be appealing to the city council. But that is just now starting. I think discussions are starting, so I can't say much more than that at this point. Oh, I might add though, if you want to contribute money or get more information, just type in "no gas station" and their website will come up. That's all.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have any questions for Karen? Questions or commentary?
You know, I have to comment.
Oh yeah, word. Hey, how you doing?
I cannot
Oh, wow.
resist. I just wanted to say thank you to Karen for all her hard work on this, and also to Old Farm for putting in, filing a letter there in the last phase, opposing the gas station and participating in the survey. That was fabulous. And we're definitely planning to appeal one way or another. We're, like Karen mentioned, and not saying too much, I guess I could say a little bit more as far as just strategizing on that front. And, our next hurdle is getting city, I know Melanie's listening with her ears closed, maybe you're not listening, but to get city council to hear the matter, because that's definitely the next hurdle. And I understand when talking with the city planner that the city planner, the city attorney, and the council decide whether or not they'll hear the matter. And that is of utmost importance to us. So I love all this conversation that I've been hearing tonight about not only listening, that's really important, but then taking action. Our city council is a new city council, super excited about the council, and they have a lot of power in this particular situation and we hope they exercise it. So that is my comment. Thank you for letting me have the floor for a minute.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, our NLA rep, that's Neighborhood Leadership Alliance, is out for the evening. We had somebody that wanted to give an update on that. Was that you, Dirk? No? No, we have to skip that. Okay, just kidding. NART update, Neighborhood Association Roundtable. I am the rep for that. NART sent a letter to council asking them to use the Community Climate Action Plan and the Transportation System Plan as a guiding light for decision making. So we just submitted that recently, and we're hoping to get feedback on that here shortly. Next up is going to be discussion about our annual general meeting and planning. Brian, did you want to talk about that since you've been
Sure,
in
yeah.
charge?
Absolutely. It's a moment. We're going back to pre-pandemic mode here shortly. After a long time, we are going to again have live in-person monthly meetings starting next month. And we will be doing that in a room at the Larkspur Center. So more information on that upcoming, but we will be done with these Zoom and only electronic meetings, and we'll work to create a hybrid. We're still working with Larkspur. Their system there is Park and Rec, and we don't know whether we'll be able to tap into it in terms of the electronics, but I hope you'll come out and join us next month in person. We will try to facilitate continuing safe behaviors, including spacing and masking and all the appropriate things to try to keep everybody safe. And with that, we will follow the next month with our general meeting, which is the big meeting, and it also will be held in person for the first time in a while, and that will also be at the Larkspur. And we have a lot going on, a lot of changes that you're hearing, and likewise we will have a number of things to discuss at the general meeting. We will be collectively, we are all going to stand for re-election. The pandemic kind of shifted the voting timelines that we've had as an NA, and our bylaws call for us to be elected in groups every other year with 2 years as the term. That hasn't exactly been happening over the course of the pandemic. So we're basically all going to stand again for all of the positions, and we invite anyone who is interested to join the board or just join the NA to please do so. And if you have questions about any of that, ask, feel free. We're always looking for people to step up and help. There's more than enough work to go around for everybody. So first of all, all the positions are open, and we will then the next year vote half of those positions again. So that will create the staggered effect of having the board, half the board being reelected every other year. So that will be new, and that date will be the general meeting will be on Thursday, March 23rd, again at the Larkspur Center. We likewise will be proposing some changes to our bylaws, one of which will be that the board positions as currently outlined are 3: chair, vice chair, and secretary treasurer. And our proposal is going to be to separate the secretary treasurer into 2 positions. So if you are inclined to assist the board in either of those capacities, would love to have more involvement. There is a lot of work on an effective NA, and it takes everybody to be effective. So the more people who can even start to learn what the neighborhood association does and can do really helps the overall benefit for both the city and for the NAs and the people who reside within there. So big changes coming forward, just going live and in person. So more to follow on that. And please know that the door is open for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Are we gonna still be able to do Zoom? Are we gonna be set up to do virtual and in person?
That's the technical question which we're trying to work out. It is a park system that they have in place at Larkspur. We do not know yet whether we'll be able to tap into it or whether we will have to create. I would imagine at the very least we'll use our own setup, which would not be, terrific for a large meeting, but it will be a way for people hopefully who cannot or do not want to attend a live meeting to get the gist of it. But we do have the tripod and we have the camera, and at the bare minimum, we should be able to get that out and with the look to improve it and be able to go forward with hybrid meetings in all of our meetings if we can figure out how to do it. So IT help is good.
Okay, cool. I think that's it. I think we're through the agenda. Any board members have anything they want to add last minute? Sweet. Anyone from our audience have any additional input or questions? Going once.
I would ask one thing, is it we have time for our general meeting, that if any members would like to see something on the general meeting agenda, now is the time to start sharing that information, because we will go into planning mode for that here pretty quickly. So including guest speakers and whatnot. So if there are agenda items that you would like to see addressed in the general meeting, please ask, and sooner rather than later.
Should I kick that out on social media? Like, try to get some input? Do we want to do like an official survey questionnaire for that?
Yes.
I don't know if
Okay.
we need to do a survey, but I think we need to post that the meeting is going to be open and live in person, and that, the agenda is being built. So now is the right time to contribute ideas.
Yeah.
So I can also create an article on the website and just here's the date, time, looking for input. Here's a link to our email address, our Facebook.
Otherwise, it's just like collecting input from the comments section, which can get really, really interesting. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get together on that.
One of those questions is, can we still zoom in? I think
Yes.
Zoom is becoming a very ingrained thing as in the people's psyche.
I think it's been awesome because I know there's a lot of people that can't make it to the meetings for one reason or another. I think it's a great way to engage with folks still.
One of the things that we are talking about as a board now is how we want to engage. You use that word. So that's obviously a priority for the city and for this council. And so, we had a great experience at Alpenglow Park this past summer, and we are actively considering how we might use that space and in what forms to bring the neighborhood together. I think most people recognize the value in doing that, and hopefully the days ahead will afford us new opportunities to do that. So if you have ideas, you'd like to see for that, again, this is the perfect time because we need to plan ahead for that stuff. And our budget is not unlimited, so we do have to allocate it in the best ways we can. So if you got a great idea or something you'd like to see, please chime in.
Sweet. Melanie, I've got one last random question for you here. I have a gaggle of children that are interested in attending a council session of sorts. Do you have input as to which session would be the most beneficial and the less likely to bore the eyeballs out of their brains? Like,
Ooh, that's
'cause it's-
tough. Yeah. What do they care about? What do they want to hear about?
Well, here's the thing. I am the mistress of detention at a local high school here, and I've got like some top tier offenders for the tardy list that I'm giving them an opportunity to wipe their slate clean.
Okay.
And get engaged with the local community. So it's not so much that they have interests, it's that it's kind of one of their options to wipe their slate clean.
Got
But,
it.
like, the most
Did it-
exciting.
Get out of jail free card?
Yeah, that one. Try that.
Okay, let's see. I'm trying to pull up. You can, I will send you a link to a schedule for a very tentative schedule for the next few meetings. The 18th, they're going to see a new counselor sworn in. Looks like we have lots of interesting things at all meetings, but I'll try to
Okay.
keep my eye out. Yeah, let's see.
Something where they could possibly give input. If we
I think it
kinda
should be a
come up with that.
requirement. I think it should be a requirement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That may be when we get our sort of goals on the agenda. That could be a good time. Or, I mean, even right now, knowing that we're going into goal setting, if they want to come in and say, hey, kind of similar to that form, here's a problem I see, here's a solution I see, or something like that in a 2-minute form might be fun.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
2 minutes. Okay. Okay, I will propose this opportunity to them and see what they think. So
Cool.
like the next 2 Wednesdays, yeah, or which one?
Yeah,
Where
like
are
the
we?
18th, or even the February 1st. Our public comment time isn't, you can kind of talk about anything that's city related. So if they want to come in with those thoughts at those 2 meetings, that'd probably be a good time.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, cool idea.
All right, sweet. With that, I think we're done.
So.
Thank you, everybody, for
Have a
joining.
good night.